Well, hello, geometry students, and welcome to the last lesson of the first chapter. Just think, you only have about 11 chapters left. So in today's video, we are going to talk about perimeter, circumference, and area, which is all review from previous courses that you may have. So while I'm going through this video, it would be very important for you to pause and work out the problems yourself and then push play, because I will not be recording all of my work. Just some key terms that we should remember. Perimeter would be the sum of all the lengths of the sides of a polygon. So with this, I typically will tell you if you're walking around something, how far do you walk? That's perimeter. Or if you're buying a fence, how much fencing do you buy? Perimeter. Area is the number of square units enclosed. So this would be if you were going to have a blanket, how much area would that take up? And perimeter for a circle is called circumference, and we're going to go over all of those things next. So here are the refresher for formulas for different shapes that we have. If you do not remember these, you want to make sure to pause this and write this down. So when we're talking about a square, remember a square has all sides are the same, so we just have a side length s. Perimeter would be 4 times s because there's 4 sides. Area would be s squared, or s times s. In a triangle, perimeter would be a plus b plus c in this picture because those are the labels of the sides. Area is 1/2 times base times height. This is very important with a triangle. The base would always be the length that is created with the height. And height you should always think about is straight up and down. When you measure your height, you are not slanted at all. You're standing straight up and down. So height is always straight up and down. When you're looking at a rectangle, rectangles, the opposite sides are congruent. So the perimeter would be 2 times b plus 2 times h. And the area is b times h. So the two side lengths multiplied together. And for circle, as you can see, I did not use p here. I used the c because it is circumference is what we'd say perimeter for a circle. And you could either use 2 times radius times pi or diameter times pi. And in this picture I drew out, diameter is the full length across and radius is half the length. And the area of a circle would be radius squared times pi, and that has to be your radius. So again, if you do not have those written down, you should make sure to write those in your notes. So our first problem, to place a fence around the outside of a garden, how much material would you need? And we have here that this is 5 and this is 12 feet. So when you're finding the fencing, that's just adding all the side lengths up. So I'd have 5 plus 5 plus 12 plus 12. 5 plus 5 is 10 plus 24. So you would need a total of 34 feet. You have to make sure that you label your work. So for this next problem, it says, what is the circumference of a circle in terms of pi? And then it says to the nearest tenth. So in terms of pi means we're going to leave our answer with pi in the answer. So circumference is 2 times radius times pi. So all I have to really do is find out what's r. Here, half the distance across is r. So 2 times 5 times pi. This would be 10 pi, and my units would be inches. So what is that to the nearest tenth? If you put 10 times pi, that'd be at 31.4 inches. So now we're given a coordinate grid, and we don't have any units on our picture. It says, what is the perimeter? You could find the distance using the distance formula for all those 3 side lengths. What I'm going to do, however, is I see that each tick mark is worth 1. So I'm just going to count LM and MN. It's easier that way. So this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And MN would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I still need LN. you can't just count a diagonal. So this is where I'm actually going to need to use the distance formula. So I wrote up the distance formula, and first I have to find my two endpoints, L and N. So if I look at L, that's 1, 2, 3, 4 to the left, which would be a -4, and up 3. N is going to be a +2 to the right, and down 5, so that'd be -5. So I'm going to label this my x1, y1, and this my x2, y2. And I'm going to plug it into my formula and solve. So again, you should push pause to make sure that you get the same answer as I do. So I have square root. My x2 is 2 minus -4 squared plus -5 minus 3 squared. Push pause to see if you get the same answer as I do. So now I got that my third side is equal to 10. But my question was not asking what is the side length of LN, it was what's the perimeter. So now I have to add up my 3 points of 8 plus 6 plus 10. And that's going to give me a total of 24. And I don't have units, so I could just leave it as 24. My next question is a word problem. A lot of times when I have word problems, I always read the last sentence first to kind of know what I'm looking for. The last sentence says, how many square yards of material do I need? So I'm guessing that I'm going to have to find the area of something because square yards would be how much space does it fill up. So as I'm reading through this, I'm going to be looking for what would be the space I'm trying to find. You are designing a rectangular flag for your city's museum. The flag will be, and again you should draw a picture, so I have a flag, 15 feet by 2 yards. Make sure you include units. So how many materials do I need? Now some of you might already think, oh, it's 30 feet, or oh, it's 30 yards. No, it's not. When you're reading a word problem, you always want to make sure that you're in the same units. Right now, I am not in the same units. So I'm going to change my 2 yards to be feet. I know there's 3 feet in 1 yard. So if I have 2 yards, that would give me 6 feet. So now I know that I can find the area 6 times 15. And that would give me 90 feet. But if you look back at the problem, the question was how many square yards? And I found how many feet or square feet there would be in. So I have to do this a different way. Now instead of changing my 2 yards, I'm going to change my 15 feet. Again, there's 3 feet in a yard. So instead of having 15 feet, I would have 15 divided by 3 would give me 5 yards. So now it's still the same way. I still multiply my base times height. So I have 2 times 5, which give me 10. And this time I would label yards squared. So it's always very important to look for what it is. What are the units? Finding the area of a circle. So before I look at my picture, I know the area of a circle is radius squared times pi. So it says, what's the area of L in terms of pi? So my answer will have pi with it. In this picture, when there's a full line across, it's telling me that the diameter is 10. Well, I don't have the diameter in my formula for area, but I know that the radius is half my diameter. So I know the radius would be 5. Half of 10 is 5. So I'd have 5 squared pi. And now I simplify. So this would become 25 pi. You always want to include your units. Here it would be centimeters. And since I found area, my units are squared. And our last problem, the area of a region is the sum of 2 areas, its non-overlapping parts. So I want to find the area of this irregular shape. One thing I noticed that's nice is that I'll probably be finding the area of rectangles or squares, which is base times height. So you could cut this into however way you would like to cut, so you have two smaller parts. What I am going to do, I'm going to make a line right here. Since I know this has one dash mark and this has one dash mark, I can move that one dash over. So now this would be a square, because opposite would also have one dash. So the other thing I noticed that, let's say that the dash marks were x, that means this has to be x. The whole length though is 16. So now I can solve out for what x would be equal to, because two x's make 16. So if I divide 16 by 2, x has to be equal to 8. So now I'm going to find the area of the parts. So my square part would be 8 squared, because that is my square. 8 squared is 64. I'm going to have to add that to my rectangular part. Now looking at my rectangular part, I don't know what this is equal to. But I do know what the whole thing is equal to, and I do know what this section is. So I can subtract that from 20. So 20 minus 8, which we already found was 8 because of the dash marks, would give me 12. Now I can find the area of this rectangle, because my base would be 12 and my height is 16, which would be 182. So now I can add those together. 2 plus 4 is 6. 6 plus 18 would give me 24. And my units here would be meters. And whenever I'm finding area is always squared units. So make sure you're filling out the Google Doc form and have a wonderful day.